All right, good afternoon, everybody. Just going to give a few minutes for everybody to join in together. Very nice. People are just coming in. If you don't mind just dropping where you're calling in from, just to make sure our chat is all working, so we can make sure any questions you have, we make sure we answer them. So let's see. Los Angeles, Daphne. All right, great. The opposite coast. Well, actually, we've got the world covered here. Alicia's calling in from London. I'm New York, and it looks like Daphne's Los Angeles. Where's everybody else? Stockholm. Wow, that's pretty cool. Calgary, great. New York, there we go. Brazil, Turkey. Wow, I think I'm being outnumbered by people outside the US, which is great to see, I guess. Turkey, Dallas. Dallas gets some great brisket, that's for sure. Charleston. Good. I'm just gonna give 2 more minutes. We still have a few people trickling in, then we're gonna get started here. All right. Great. 2 more people just joined. I'll just give it 1 more minute for everybody to just get on started. So then we'll begin. All right, we're gonna get started here. Welcome everybody to the third installment of the financial modeling webinar. First off, it looks like we have a few different people from different parts of the world. Some who are new customers to LiveFlow, and some who are some existing customers. So definitely great to see some familiar faces. My name is Josh Thomas. I'm one of the product specialists here at LiveFlow. I want to first, I guess, just give a very quick, what is LiveFlow for our new customers? LiveFlow is a financial reporting software. So we're able to automate a lot of the manual processes from downloading QuickBooks information and creating these really cool templates that, Alicia's kind of built and taken the lead on. In terms of what you're seeing right now is the offers that we have. So for new customers, if you're thinking about, maybe I want to change my reporting software, let me just give this a shot. I've put it into the chat for everybody to see a place where you can talk with our sales team to see how you can kind of get a hold or maybe, of course, becoming a LiveFlow customer. And for our existing customers, if you're interested in some more premium items like premium templates, or our consolidation product, which is a no formula solution, then you're free to kind of book a time with me in that second link. It says premium templates, but if it's consolidation, we can unlock a 7-day free trial for you, and I will personally come onto the call and kind of help you map your chart of accounts and show you how easy it is in 2-3 minutes, how we're able to take that complex process and make it very, very simple. So that's a little bit about LiveFlow, but the main focus for today's webinar is financial modeling. Alisha is our in-house expert when it comes to spreadsheets. She is a certified CFA and is very knowledgeable in creating all these different templates, cash flow forecasting, visual templates that you're seeing within LiveFlow. If this is you may have seen her in previous one of our webinars because she does a lot. And with that said, I'll pass it on to Alisha to kind of take it over from here. The last thing that I'll note is if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat. And then whenever there's kind of a break period, when Alicia's speaking, I'll kind of maybe interrupt her and say, hey, we got a question in the chat, and we'll leave some room at the end for questions as well. But with that said, I give it to my way more talented colleague, Alisha.
Thanks, Josh, and great to see everyone here. I think we can just jump straight into our modeling for today. Sorry, PowerPoint, I swear. So yeah, today we're going to be looking at some really advanced functions. So if you haven't tuned into the previous 2 webinars, which was level 1 and 2, where we did basic and intermediate, then you may have some trouble keeping up. So if you have any questions at any point, then just stop me and I will pause and address that. Now, we're going to be dedicating a lot of time to actually working in the spreadsheet today. So very limited, PPT time today, but let's see. So what we're going to be doing is basically, we're just going to be building a dynamic trailing 12-month budget versus actuals model with custom mapping. And basically the focus of this session is going to be the dsum function, as well as some technical concepts around arrays and named ranges. So we're really transitioning into the advanced side of spreadsheets in this one. Now, just a disclaimer, you don't need to know any of the stuff that I'm teaching today to really build an advanced model. Actually, the simpler you can make your model, the better it is. But it's good to know these things. It's good to know what a range is, what arrays are, so that you can deal with different situations that might come up when you're modeling. And you also need to know what's possible and what's simply just not possible in a spreadsheet. So that's basically like the approach that I'll be taking over here. So the focus is not on the financial activity that we're doing necessarily. I mean, you might have your own way of doing BVA reporting, but the focus is going to be learning the spreadsheet function that allows us to do things easily. Now, yeah, okay, so a quick recap. This is from a beginner session. So we want to make the models future-proof, which means that it shouldn't be dependent on only one person who knows how to do the model and nobody else really understands what's going on. So we want to give as many guides as possible. And we want to have a high degree of automation so that there's very little for any new user to do. And this is kind of like a tricky balance between making it user-friendly versus making it automated. But with a few helpful notes and guides, we can actually, make this. Oh, sorry, I think my mouse is going crazy. It's hypersensitive. Sorry. So yeah, we can make that balance work for our own firms. So any how-to guide, any explainer tabs, these are all useful things to have in your model, as well as error messages and protecting sheets, just so that a user doesn't accidentally touch anything. We've covered all of this in a previous session. So if you have any questions on any of these, please let me know in the chat. And then some recap on our formulas. So we've done a bunch, but these are like the core ones. And I think index match was the most complex one that we covered so far. And we really took a deep dive into the theory behind index match so that we can understand how to use this in any situation and how to deal with some of the common errors that come up from it. We also saw data validation in Google Sheets and using the if functions. Now, the assumption is that you are all comfortable with these three, at least these three elements of Sheets. But if you're not, in the sense like if while I'm explaining dsum and the arrays, if you have some questions around these, then you can again ping me and I will stop and I will explain, just so that I know that we're all on the same page. Okay, and with that, I want to jump straight into our spreadsheet. So to start, we're going to need a trailing 12-month P&L, and you're going to need a budget for prior year and current year. We need budgets for both years because since we're looking at a trailing period, some of it is going to fall into the previous year. So we want both in our spreadsheet. So what I have here is I have a completed model that I will share at the end of the session. And then I have a blank model that I will build live in front of you today. We'll try to get as close as we can to the completed model, but if we run out of time, then you can just directly see the completed model there. So I'll just switch over to spreadsheets. 1 second. Yeah. So this is the completed model where we're going to come up, and this is the blank model. So yeah, I've already kind of got some theory data in here. And just a disclaimer, I will be using keyboard shortcuts while I'm doing the modeling. And I use a Windows PC, so my keyboard shortcuts will be referenced in, like I'll tell you to use Alt or whatever shortcuts if I'm using it. Don't get confused if you're wondering as to how I'm jumping around so fast in the sheet. I will share a list of shortcuts later on if you need it. So yeah, with that, let's get started. So essentially just some theory to go through and understand before we jump into the model. Can I share this sample template? I can, but I would advise that you don't, you focus on learning and watching me do it first, and then try it on your own. But yeah, I will be sharing both of these links after the session. So let me put this in the chat here. I can also share it again later on, but for now, this is the blank one. We'll be building this out soon. Okay, so now basically we have two concepts that we want to look at: named ranges and arrays. One thing I wanted to give a disclaimer on, there is a difference conceptually in these things between Google Sheets and Excel, and I'm not jumping into what those differences are. The focus of this session is Google Sheets. So if you have some background knowledge on these from Excel, then that's separate, like that's not applying here. So essentially, what is a named range? Now, when we reference formulas in our, when we reference cells, we sometimes find that we're often referring the same cells again and again. And instead of constantly having to go back and type that row column reference, you can just give these cells a name and then call upon that name. So for example, if I have Jan, Feb, and March over here. And essentially, I find that I constantly want to reference these three. So I can just select them, and over here in the corner, I can just give them a name. So I'll just call this months. And now when I select them, I think I should be able to, oh, sorry, I think it didn't come through. Sorry, my bad. So we select them, we go to data, we go to named ranges, ignore the existing ones. Sorry, and I think we need to add them here. So I'm just calling this months. So we've added this. Now, if I say equal to, you'll see that this is appearing and this is pre-selected. So I can go index months and it will show me. I can go transpose months and it will show me the values, etc. So instead of me having to go transpose I can just make it much easier and call it months. We can also do this for a single cell, and that's like a very common use case that we see. So for example, if I say current month and let's say 31st Jan 2024. I'm in the UK, so I'll be using date, month, year format because that's what my sheet recognizes, so don't get confused. So, and then I can just give this particular cell a name. So I can go to data, go to name ranges, add a range, and so you can just select one, and I'll call this current month. Now, maybe a sample use case for this would be if I have, let's say, Jan, and I'm using the end of month formula to just generate some dates. So end of month is basically taking the previous, taking the cell that I give and then just going a certain number of months away from it. So like if I put 1, then this should be the end of the month, that's 1 month after this. The end of the month, that's 2 months after this, etc. So if I just do this and I move it to the side, so I have a list of months over here. And now, like without named range, my formula would be, I want to see whether a certain month is actual or basically if it's in the past, I wanted to return actual, but if it's in the future, I wanted to return forecast. So I'll say if this is greater than this, and in this formula, I will need to lock the reference for this one. We've covered cell locking before, but essentially what cell locking means is we put these $signs so that when we drag formulas to the right or down, the cell reference that's locked stays there. So the range does not move. So if the current month is greater than, sorry, if the month I'm looking at is greater than the selected cell, then give me forecast, otherwise give me actual. I just copy it around. So now if I were to change this to 2019, so you can see this automatically updates. But the key thing that, or something to keep in mind was I had to lock the cell. And there may be different formulas, different things in my sheet where I need to reference the current month. I mean, this is a common cell that we might want to reference across our model. So with a named range, it's actually easier. I can just say if the same formula is greater than current month, then forecast, otherwise actual. So it's the same kind of concept, but over here, because I've used a named range, I don't have to bother with the $signs or anything like that. And it will always just reference this cell. So that's basically the concept of named ranges, where you can define this in advance and then make writing formulas much easier and much more kind of user-friendly, because somebody who's looking at this kind of will understand exactly what it is that I'm trying to do. Although this is an easy enough formula, but as we move into the realm of advanced territory and we start writing bigger and bigger formulas, named ranges are actually indispensable. Like it's almost impossible to write big formulas without named ranges, because you yourself will get lost when you revisit a formula and you try to understand what it's doing when it's like 7 different if statements or something like that. So So this is how you get a named range and how you use a named range in a formula. So quick pause. I know I'm going really fast, but quick pause if there are any questions at this point. How do you remember all the named ranges? Well, so two scenarios. Either you've built the model, in which case you have deliberately assigned a name to each cell and you will remember it. And it's always helpful to have it be as obvious as possible. Like, what is the function of this cell? So this area in the sheet is going to be where a user will update the current month. So it makes sense to call it current month. If I call this Alisha secret cell, nobody's going to understand what this is. So it's try to define it with as few words as possible and as close to what its function is. Would it be possible to? Yeah, I think we have it available on YouTube. Beatrice, we'll share that. Sorry, just to go back to the previous question. Yeah, so if you are building it, then try to keep it very user friendly and easy to access. If you are entering a model that somebody else has built and there are already named ranges in there, then you go here to data, then you go to named ranges, such as in this model, see there are already named ranges here, and just go and familiarize yourself with them, exactly what it is. So if you just click on it, it'll show you what exactly it's looking at. These specific named ranges are automatically inserted by LiveFlow just to make writing formulas easier. We have an option to disable them, but it's kind of like useful to have, especially when we're doing advanced stuff. So yeah, if you are looking at somebody else's model, first go to named ranges and understand what data is coming from there. Then look at the formulas that they've written. It will make more sense. So these are the maybe two ways to address named ranges or the existence of named ranges in a report. Any other questions? Can't you have a tab with on? Yeah, you probably can, but it won't. You can. I mean, that's definitely a useful option. So it's essentially going to be exactly what you see in this thing. You can write it in a tab, and that's absolutely an option. So it's up to you to take a call on what's most user friendly for the next person who's using the report, and always assume that you're not going to be around to explain. So make it as straightforward as possible. And actually, a good kind of hygiene practice is to have a guide in your model. You can hide it if you want, but like how to use this shape. Oh, sorry, and just write like step 1, check named ranges. These are the ones we use. Then current one, and then maybe like a definition of what it is. So the more time you have to invest in building out this infrastructure, the better it is. So yeah, you can absolutely have this. You may or may not want to reference it directly, but like, this outlines the current month did by user, etc. So this is one way to do it. I'm just going to remove grid lines because I personally hate grid lines. This is a personal preference, you don't have to do that. But yeah, so this is one way to do it. And then maybe you can say reference, and somebody who's using it now has a sense of where it is. So yeah, you can have a name, you can have a glossary, and actually it's a great idea if you do, because it makes it easier for the next person. But if not, like if somebody has not done it for you, then come in here and look here in under name ranges. You can also edit and delete ranges if you want over here. Like you have the option to like just straight up delete. Okay. Is the name range, oh, that's a great question. Is it only available in this document or on all documents going forward? So the name range will only be available in this document and any copies that are made of this document. So if I do file and make a copy, it will have the name range. So But it's not going to be there in every document. Like if I were to start like a completely new sheet, and then I look for that name range, it won't exist. Like if I look for current month, nothing is coming up. So the idea is the named range lives only in this sheet, and every copy that is made of this sheet, it will live in that, but it won't like show up in your predefined functions. Something to keep in mind. So if I, and since we're on Google Sheets, which is very collaborative, so if I were to share this sheet with all of you, you guys you will see this name range, and I think you will have an option to make copy. So the copy will also have a name range. So, okay, good questions. Otherwise, that would be hard. Yeah, exactly. Kind of. So there's this other function that we're not covering today, but I just want to tell you that it exists. Just want to point it out, called named functions. These are much more advanced and maybe not relevant for you at this stage unless you're planning to get into like more tech kind of roles where you build templates for others. But named functions essentially allow you to, like, how you have sum, etc. So you can build your own. I can call it Alisha's function and it will always do a certain thing. And those things are much more tricky to, copy over from sheet to sheet. But yeah, like just FYI that this exists, which has a little more gray area around when it's in a sheet and when it's not. You have an option to import these named functions from another sheet, etc. But yeah, we're not getting into this right now. Named ranges, on the other hand, only live in the sheet and they will always live in every copy of the sheet. Okay. And cool, so let's move on to arrays and the array formula. So we're already kind of getting into the more technical stuff here. Now, basically, what is an array in a spreadsheet context? Because different programming languages have these same terms. So we're just specifically talking about Google Sheets right now. So in Sheets, any range, any collection of cells, so it can be like this or this or just this is an array. So any collection of cells in Google Sheets can be called an array. And the advantage of knowing about arrays is that sometimes you want to do calculations on a group of cells. So you want to do the same calculation on every item in that range, but you don't want to, or it's not feasible to, copy it across. So maybe you don't have space to do that operation. So just to give an example, over here, so I have this profit and loss. This is automatically generated by LiveFlow. Now, one of the things is these months, if you can see, they're being generated as text, not as numbers. So this is Feb, March, etc. But maybe I might have some need for having these as numbers, to such as to check whether something is actual or forecast. So for my sheet to be able to do operations like greater than, less than, things need to be numbers. So I want to convert this to a number. Now, option one that I have is this function called date value. So I can go date value this and just make it a date. Okay, and then I can do like, like I can just check if so let me call my current month. So is, I want to see like if this is present in this range. So I can just go like match, and now we're going to look for the exact date. So match 29th February. So match current month in this range. 0 is for exact match. So, the match function has options to go approximate match or exact match. Approximate match you will almost never use. So if you're writing a match function with 1 over here, then you're doing something wrong. So we want to go 0. So we want exact match. So basically it's saying it didn't find this value in the cell. Now my point is, for me to write this one formula, I had to actually go and create an entire range of numbered dates, and then I was able to write the formula. Now, what if it's not feasible for me to do that? What if I don't have space? What if there's some restriction along how, being able to actually make this area? So this is when the concept of arrays are useful. So we want to create like this calculation, and we want to have it live only inside the formula. So remember how a named range lives in the sheet? An array, in context, an array can live only inside a formula. It doesn't live outside it. So if an array is referenced in this cell, it won't be referenced outside it. So, to give that in context, I can just say match this, and then I will say date value. So the exact same formula that I used for these yellow cells. And I will select my original range. Now this is a range of cells. Now I want to do this function, this calculation on this range. So I will add, put a zero here. I will add this thing called array formula in the beginning. It still won't work because it's, obviously this thing is not there. Let me make this, let me reference this thing. Instead of current month, now we're just going to reference this cell just so I can show you what is happening. So essentially, if I were to use the array formula, what my sheet has done is it applied the date value function to the entire array, then used this, like this plus the array formula as the reference point to search for, whatever is in E4. So if I were to do this without the array formula, it wouldn't work. But if I were to do it with the array formula, it works. So just to kind of recap, what I'm doing is this entire operation of having a range of date valued months is now being done automatically inside my formula. So I don't actually need this supporting row. I don't need it right now. So I think let me paste this. Yeah. I don't need it. Shouldn't the result be 1? I'm looking at April. So we're not doing count, we're doing match. So what match does is it returns the position of something in a range. So Feb is 1, March is 2, April is 3, May is 4. So it's the first thing in the range, second thing in the range, etc. That's what the match function is. You can, the function that you're speaking about is count. So if I were to change this to count, it would still work, but then I don't need that extra zero at the end. So, okay, I think something going on. But anyway, basically this is the point. So any questions on what the array is doing? Like what is the difference between adding a supporting row and then doing the calculation that versus just using an array formula? Any questions? Okay, no questions. That's either a good sign or a bad sign, I think. I hope I'm not losing everyone. It's fine if you didn't understand it in the first go. When you try it on your own, it will make a lot more sense. Most things with spreadsheets, you see somebody else doing it, not as useful. You do it on your own, very useful. Oh, awesome. Some people are understanding. Awesome. That's so cool. Now, arrays. This is like an easier example. I think I went so this is another example of the array formula. So basically I have some data here. I've just put random numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, blah, blah. Now, the task that is given is divide this by 100. So you can either go like, whatever is in the previous cell divided by 100, whatever is in the previous, etc. Or you can use array formula. Using array formula in this case is you just define what exactly it is that you are hoping to, like that you want to do the operation on, and then you just type array formula before that. So if I show you this live, let me add rows here. Okay, so I'm just putting numbers. So if you see, the array formula is able to automatically copy the formula down. I'm not doing anything here, but in the direct method, I would actually have to copy this down. So if you're dealing with data that the size of the data might change, so every month you might have new things coming in, maybe like, and this is something we see a lot with people who work with QuickBooks, is that you have a new account that comes into your chart of accounts, or maybe a chart of account change and the account just goes away. So basically the range changes, and then you might have to actually drag the formula down. But if you use, like if you've defined something with an array formula, then you don't actually have to do anything. It'll always automatically update. So this is a way to make it more dynamic. But there's one, so that's like the main advantage. And this is a good advantage because many times people forget to like copy formulas down, and it completely throws off the accuracy of models. But the disadvantage, and this is particularly true if the user is not very familiar with array formulas, is that you're going to encounter ref errors because array formulas need space. What this means is, look at this, I have selected 18 through 26. So if my inputs are, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my inputs are 9 rows. That means for the output, I need to give it space for 9 rows. And when I say space, I mean there should be nothing user entered here. Because the way Google Sheets thinks is, if I were to type something here, what it's going to do is it will override. It will always give whatever I have typed priority over its own calculation. So if I've typed this, then it's going to ref out and say the array result was not expanded because it would override data. So I need to delete this. And so the core idea is you need to give it space, but it doesn't like, sorry, I see a question here, but just to finish my point, you need space. Otherwise you'll have ref errors, and it's very easy to deal with ref errors. You just need to add more rows or columns, whatever. But it can be a bit daunting to see, like open a sheet and just see refs everywhere. What if the new line is added under the existing array? Yeah, so yeah, in that case, it won't update. Like, for example, yeah, if I have added here some data, yeah, then it won't update. In that case, I'll need to update the array to, yeah, to maybe whatever, 30 in this case. So yes, you will need to update that. But a way to work around this, interestingly, is using named ranges, which we just saw. So basically, in LiveFlow specifically, like we've kind of built this program, like with like the product itself does this. It essentially says that everything that's here, like all the way till the end, is sorry. Well, I mean, since we're doing it with the software, we're able to adjust it dynamically. But if you're doing it manually, you would select even the blank ones and say that everything over here is a certain name range. So we'll call this profit loss row labels, etc. And so what I do is if I were to just reference that profit loss row labels, use array formula here, then and then even if my chart of account changes, because my named range is capturing it, it will update it here in my in my supporting sheet or whatever I'm doing it for. So a good trick is to combine it with either named ranges or with index match, both of which are great to capture like changing data sizes. You can quickly apply array formulas, in case you're wondering how I did that so fast, by pressing Control Shift Enter. I think on Mac it's Command Shift Enter, but I'm not sure. I'm not used to the Mac shortcuts. But essentially, if I have any thing that I want to convert into an array formula, I just press Control Shift Enter, and it automatically adds it. You can try it on your own systems. I'll let you know what the Mac one is maybe after the session. So like see here, and then I want to actually divide it by 100. So easy. So yeah, this is essentially what the array formula does. So there's two, let's say, use cases of it. One is to like never have to drag formulas down. So to just write the formula once, and then use the array function, array formula, or you can use it to do calculations within a cell, such as the date value example we saw. Any questions so far? Okay. Just add it, like if you have any questions, just stop me whenever. So yeah, these are like the main two things that we have done. And now I'm going to go to a level that's even more advanced. So, you guys are going to be learning a lot more technical stuff in this webinar, which is how to create an array. And now, basically, sometimes, and this happens a lot when you're using dsum, it's not possible or realistic to have a supporting sheet or supporting area, whatever. You need to do the calculation inside the cell. But sometimes your existing array is also not defined. Like, over here, I had all my data neatly arranged, and that's cool. But sometimes I won't even have this. So I want to move, like basically I want to do calculations around that. In that case, I can create my own arrays. Sorry, I see a question. What happens if you drag it down to cell D33? Sorry, do you mean the array formula? If I drag this down, so if this were till D33, it's essentially applying the formula. It's no different from if I had the formula here, and if I were to. Yeah, so it's no different from having this formula here and then dragging it down. It would give me the same result. I don't actually have text in these cells. D31 to 32 is blank. This whole area is blank, just for the record. Like, I know it looks like I might have data, but all of this is being typed in. This is in column B. Let me do this. It's not as pretty, but basically my column D is blank. My array formula has space, and I have kind of, well, not deliberately, but I almost subconsciously designed it like this. Basically, if I'm using an array formula, then I will take extra care to not put anything under it, because that's, I don't know, it's like a force of habit. You'll get used to it if you start building these kind of formulas. But yeah, you want it blank. Sorry, yeah. So going back to creating your own array, sometimes you need to make it on your own, and in that case, you can actually make this by using curly brackets. So this is among like the most technical concepts that I think you'll encounter, but essentially how Excel or Google Sheets, basically spreadsheets, read data, they essentially work with this concept of separators. So when I type values here, 1 and 2, for me, visually, I can see that this is two separate things, 1 and 2. And if I were to type it like this, like me as a human, I know that these are different things. 1 and 2 is not the same as 1, 2. But how does my spreadsheet know that? Like, how does it know when to, put something in the next column versus put both? It reads these things called commas, commas and semicolons. Probably can't see it, but and you may have come across the term CSV, comma separated values, which is like a file format for Excel. So what this is going to do is essentially how your spreadsheet is reading data. It's like this: 1, 2 in curly brackets. and I hit enter, you can see that it's giving me the same result as what's over here. This is the same. From the spreadsheets point of view, these are the same thing. Although over here I have written 1 and 2 in 2 columns, whereas over here I've given it a comma separated command. It's the same according to the spreadsheet. So whereas over here there's no separator, so it basically there's nothing here. So what this means is we can actually exploit this to create our own arrays. So instead of feb through, so I'll just take a small excerpt over here and I'm just copying this. So if I were to, of course, to mark something as text, you need to use quotations and then comma to separate the values. Let me make this March, comma. April. Oh, I didn't close the line. Yep, it's the same thing. Now, so date value on, now understand what's in here in this curly bracket. This is an array because it's a group of cells. Although it looks like it's just one because it lives only in this formula, it's actually an array because I've enclosed it in curly brackets and separated it with commas. So if I were to make this an array formula, I actually get the same result that I did the first time around, but I don't need this. I don't even need to reference this data over here. Basically, I didn't need anything. I've created my own array and I've like written a date value around it. So this is a kind of thing that you can use to now write really complex formulas because you're not restricted by the space in your spreadsheet. You're not restricted by the data that exists in your spreadsheet. You have full freedom to basically create your own mini spreadsheet that lives like inside a formula and build around it. So this is a really powerful kind of function. And this is the comma separator. You can also do this on a column, like if you wanted one below the other, by using semicolons. If I switch to semicolons, you can see it becomes like a column instead of a row. So the idea is commas separate columns, rows are separated by semicolons. Again, I will pause here because I know we went technical. Any questions? Okay, good. So, so far, I think we're all good. Just deleting all of this, so we don't get confused later. So, how this is actually going to help us in practice, like now I want to actually build a model. I get the theory, I want to build a model. How do I use it? Of course, there's numerous ways to use this. And just a disclaimer, people are not generally familiar with arrays and as well as these curly bracket stuff. So if you're using these, make sure to write a guide for the next user. Always write a guide. Okay, now I'm going to build a very simple budget versus actual dashboard. Quick plug, if you use LiveFlow, you can actually generate a BVA like automatically. You don't need to build a model at all. Just to kind of really show you quickly, really quickly show you what it looks like. You can like, we won't be recreating this exactly, but I just wanted to show you like sometimes we can go into all this detail about formulas, but there's a tool out there that will just do it like easier and faster and you don't have to ever worry about it. So generally if you, and not just LiveFlow, like if you can find tools that automate things in your spreadsheet, then actively like invest in them because it just makes life easier. Okay, now over here, I will remove my grid lines because I don't like them. Trailing 12-month actuals. Now the use case that I'm going to define over here is essentially that I want only these items. Okay, like I don't want to present this whole detail with all the accounts, account codes, etc. to my client. So I just want this revenue, COGS. This would be give me gross profit, and then I want expenses, just all expenses ever, and then that will give me, or maybe I can separate it as operating expenses and non-operating expenses and net income. Obviously, you can change this, like you can carve out, let's say if you want to carve out labor, so you can just have that as an extra line or whatever. But for now, or maybe let's do that. Let's take operating expenses, non-operating expenses. Okay. Sorry, since the books defines this as bullet income. And now we want our months. So since I already have a trailing 12-month range over here, I'm just going to reference it directly. And again, this is a named range as we saw earlier. So I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to use my array formula named range to get this really, really fast. Okay. And now, obviously, I as a human know that when I say revenue and when I say total income, it's the same thing. My spreadsheet does not know this. It has no way of knowing this. So for me to tell it that, give me like these things correspond to these items, I need to build a mapping column. So over here, I'm just inserting some data validation. Data validation, as we covered in the previous session, allows you to restrict what options a user has when they are interacting with your sheets. It's super useful. So I'm just going to make a supporting sheet called data validation. This is more for helping the next person, because if they want to change anything or wonder where some data is coming from, they can just look at this place. Okay, and then chart of accounts. And over here, I'll just add these. Items like gross profit and net income are calculated items. Like I can just get gross profit by subtracting revenue, COGS, etc. So it's, I don't need to map that one. Okay. So in my data validation, I've added, I'll go drop down from a range. Let's select these. Maybe put some colors so it's nice. You don't need to have the colors, I just like them. Okay, so I will quickly map. So this I want to go under revenue. This I want as COGS. Now all of this I want it as operating expenses. But this one I want it as payroll. And I want this one to also go under the payroll bucket. Okay, and then there's a line item over here for, so I'll just call this the non-operating income. Don't like overthink the mapping. You can play around with it on your own. I will add the same columns for my budgets because I want consistency in my accounts. I'm just going to copy the same like drop down. I don't need to like define a new one now because I've already defined it once. So data validation works if you copy paste it. So it has the same drop downs. Really quickly, revenue, COGS, everything down here is OPEX, except for this is payroll. This is payroll. This don't need to exist. So this total payroll expenses actually like sums up the previous two. So I'm only mapping the total. I'm not mapping the sub accounts. So I should have done that here as well. So you can either map the sub accounts or the total. You don't need to do both. The idea is that we'll be like adding this all together. Same thing here. Again, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm like running through this a bit fast, so I can focus on what I actually want to show you. This is extra. Okay. Yeah, this is my OpEx. This is my payroll. I don't have any other payroll and not ready. Okay, so I've mapped it really quickly. You can do it on your own as well. And then over here, now in the previous sessions, we saw index match. But a limitation of index match is that it will only find the first value. So basically, if I were to use index, and then if I were to like index this whole area and match for, well, obviously there's only one revenue inbox, so let me go for operating expenses. You don't actually need to type it. I just want to demonstrate a point. You can actually just link it generally. So if you want to match that over here, in the mapping column, take care that your ranges are similar. And 0 for exact match, and column, I'm just going to say 1 for temporarily because we're looking at Feb 23. I didn't type it properly. Let me just link it to this. Okay, so if you see over here, I've used an index match formula to return Feb. But the problem is it's giving me only the first one. But actually operating expenses, I wanted to add all of this. I don't want just the first value. I want all of these values. So index match is no longer suitable for this use case. So right now, what I'll do is I'll use the dsum function. So what dsum does is it basically looks at a database and then it adds the values in a certain field that meet certain criteria. So in this case, if this is my database, so I want my database to be this whole thing here. I'm no longer concerned with the first column right now because it's irrelevant. I'm just concerned with the second one. Now, dsum is going to again. So when I select this whole thing for my dsum, it's going to think these are the names of my columns. And when I communicate with the dsum function, I need to always define it in these terms. So basically, it'll ask me what do I want to sum. So I need to give it the column name or the column number. And it will ask me what criteria it should look for. Again, I need to tell which column it should look at to search for the criteria that I'm giving. So dsum database, so thing, lock it. Now, which field should it add? I'm just going to say, look for the field that's called Feb 2023. We'll make it dynamic later on. And criteria, I'll say that back here. And now, sorry, I need to define the criteria like this. I need to give it the column name and then criteria I want. Sorry, I think we might extend by like 5 minutes if that's okay with you guys. Or if you need to drop, we can share the recording. So this is the column name. This is the criteria I want. And then it'll add everything. Instead of this Feb 23, let me just link it here. And this is the correct number that I'm looking for. So, okay. If I were to go back and add all my OpEx for February, it would give me the same number. So this is what the dsum does. Now the problem is when I'm presenting this to a client, I cannot go and write mapping every time. Like I cannot write mapping revenue, mapping COGS, mapping whatever, I mean, maybe I can and then hide it, but it looks ugly and kind of not very user-friendly to do it like this. So to work around this, what I'll do is I'll use the array formulas that we just learned to create this effect that one cell has mapping and the cell below it has the criteria I want within my formula itself. So I'm just deleting that. And I'll say, so over here, I'm using my curly brackets to create a range. And I define the name of the column as mapping. This is essentially the first thing that we saw. Now, since it has to be one below the other, I'm going to use a semicolon because that's a row separator. And then I'll say, and I don't need to say anything. I can just link this here. Let me lock it. And then I close the curly bracket and I close the brackets. And it gives me the same value. To make this more accurate, generally, you also can put like an equal to sign and this, and it'll be like it's better hygiene, basically. And then I can just kind of drag this around, and you'll see that it gives me the exact values for all of these. So now I have, and I just need to like copy paste this. And I have my model kind of already ready to go. The gross profit is this minus this. And net income is gross profit minus these two expense items plus my income. And yeah, I mean, of course, we can clean this up and all of that stuff, but you basically have this ready. And because I already took the trouble to set it up, now if I go like this, trailing 12-month budget, I just copy this down. It's easier. And then I use the same formula, but now I change the range. So now instead of defining my database as the P&L, I'll use my budget. Make sure you select the first column, the headers, because that's how DSUM is reading your data. Drag this, and I'll come to those value errors in a minute. And for the gross profit and net income, because the formula is the same and I didn't lock my cells, it's actually just, you can just drag and drop it. Okay, now the reason this is valuing out is because it's kind of crossed over into 2024, whereas my database is only till 23. So I can just add like an if over here. And, oh, sorry, if error. If error basically means if it doesn't find anything in the first DSUM, then it needs to look in my budget 2024. And there you go. You already have a trailing 12-month budget versus actuals going, and you can like keep building around this. So sorry, I know we rushed a little at the end and we're already 4 minutes past. So I will stop here. You can look at the completed model, which I am again sharing now. Completed model for a more neater version of what exactly we were trying to achieve, which is this. It's got more colors and stuff, but essentially it's built the same way. And I know we covered a lot of technical concepts. I will stop my screen share now. And if there's any final questions, you can talk to me, talk to Josh. I'm also dropping my email ID in the chat. If you want to reach out to me after this with any questions, you can.
Great. Thank you so much, Alisha. I was taking detailed notes because I actually did not know DSUM as well as she does. And so now I finally feel like I have a good grasping of it. But yeah, that concludes the webinar for today. If you have any questions about what Alisha's gone through, she's dropped her email into the chat, alisha@liveflow.io. When it comes to if you wanted to try out the consolidation product, so that mapping that Alisha was doing, we actually now have a product in which if you want to do a single entity rollup, you can use the consolidation product to do the same exact thing. It just avoids some of the formulas that come there. But if you watch Alicia's webinar, maybe you don't need the product itself. But if you want to talk about that, there's I dropped my link. And also, if you're a new customer, then that link is there as well. will you have any more sessions going forward on the same type of topics? Great learning. Well, glad to hear that. Curious if you drop in the chat exactly, or email us afterwards what specific topics that you're looking for. Alisha has a wealth of knowledge, and for us, these types of things, if it's helpful for you guys, we're happy to do them. We just need to know the content that we're looking to create here. So with that said, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Alisha. That's it from the LiveFlow team.
Yep, see you, and yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, guys.